Hello, everybody. My name is Trevor Phillips, and I'm here with.
Jalen Hudgens, and we're here today speaking on the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes, and we're here doing a podcast today for our history and social protest class, which is actually both our first podcast.
And this movement started back in 2012 when George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin, an innocent black teen.
Yeah, and so after this incident happened, the Black Lives Matter movement basically started uh, with social protests coming out around 2013.
Martin was a 17-year-old African-American boy who was on the way home from a convenience store after making a store run for a pack of Skittles, along with a brisk sweet tea. Zimmerman was a regular local neighborhood watch member and had recently contacted the police about some burglaries that were happening.
Yes, and so basically the night of February 26th in 2012, George Zimmerman calls the police for a suspicious activity or a suspicious person because he's a neighborhood watch. He was instructed not to go to the vehicle or not to approach the person, but indeed he did. And basically all everyone knows is that Trayvon Martin lost his life that night. George Zimmerman tried to claim self-defense, but he actually did end up beating the trial.
This and all is a reason why the Black Lives Matter movement really started, because of the fact that they thought this was injustice. Following the Trayvon Martin situation, George Floyd was an innocent black man who lost his life due to the Minneapolis police who kneeled on his neck. This was another issue that kind of sparked this whole Black Lives Matter movement and really just brought all the things that were behind the scenes that we've been seeing for years. It brought it to light.
Yeah, and it really brought attention to the whole Black Lives Matter movement and following George Floyd's death. And it started it from a national movement to a global movement.
And after this, in the black community, it kind of sparked something in terms of dealing with police officers, and it was a scary thing to do after this happened. After this happened, I can remember an incident where I was pulled over by a police officer and I kind of froze in the car thinking about what happened, thinking I was going to lose my life afterwards. In a sense, I kind of froze having an anxiety attack.
Yeah, and you weren't the only one who went through situations like this. People all over the U.S. were scared to trust their police departments because African Americans felt like they were always in harm's way.
Thanks, Trevor, and I agree with you. Looking back on this time as a black community, us being scared of people who are in a powerful position really brings to light the things that should have been brought to light before the Black Lives Matter movement happened.
Which is crazy to think because, police are here to serve and protect, but people were genuinely scared of them. And there were black parents even telling their kids, like, whenever there's, like, certain situations, like, what they should do, which is kind of crazy thinking, like, your police, you want to be able to, speak to them, know they serve you for all the good reasons, and everybody felt like they were serving us for all the wrong reasons.
And Trevor, one thing that bothered me through this whole thing was when we brought up the Black Lives Matter movement, they kind of pushed it down and said that all lives matter, which we never said it didn't. When people say save the turtles, that doesn't mean the rest of the animals out there in the ocean don't matter. They just putting that into the spotlight, and they kind of pushed what we were pushing forward out the way.
Yeah, shortly after the Black Lives Matter movement, they started the Blue Lives Matter, which was a matter for police officers losing their lives serving and protecting, apparently. But it was really, in my eyes, like tit for tat. Like, they felt like they were being attacked, so they started this Blue Lives Matter movement, which, like you said, nobody ever said that police officer lives didn't matter. It was just the fact that black innocent lives kept on being lost, and the whole movement started so we can create a stop to it.
And Trev, in a way that was kind of disrespectful towards the Black Lives Matter movement because they tried to backfire at us without really knowing what we were trying to stand for. I really don't think it worked in that moment. And not to say that police lives didn't matter, but in that very moment, Black Lives Matter was in the spotlight and they disrespected it.
Yes, and in my opinion, the Black Lives Matter was in the spotlight rightfully for a specific reason, and everybody was coming together trying to stop issues that have been ongoing.
And you know what's crazy about this, Trev, is in the NFL, there was a quarterback who took a knee during the Pledge of Allegiance because he believed that what they said during the song wasn't true. And when they were talking about this is the land of the free, and everybody kind of bashed him for what he believed in. And he happened to take this knee before the Black Lives Matter movement was well noticed and popular.
Correct, and I believe the quarterback's name was Colin Kaepernick. He took a stand for what he believed in, and in the NFL, with the platform he had, he really had a lot of followers after this, and actually he had a lot of haters too.
And he wasn't the only athlete at this time that stood up for the Black Lives Matter movement. You can look over to the NBA, and an NBA team actually postponed their game because of it. And the WNBA, there were players going out there in Black Lives Matter shirts and just showing the world how we felt about it.
Yes, and it was really great to see young African Americans using their platform that, of course, they gained through hard work and dedication, through their athleticism and whatnot.
And Trevor, that was a great point. Seeing people in their spotlight with their magnitude of a following stand up for this, it really brought a huge crowd behind it, and they led the right way, and it showed us how to follow behind it.
Yeah, and you got to think the NFL and NBA, these are multi-billion-dollar businesses which have fan bases globally all over the world. So for them, these athletes use their platform, it was a really good thing to see.
And to piggyback off what you said, Trev, they had to take major pay cuts to do this. Like, they were getting fined and everything. They were getting bashed on social media by a bunch of people for wasting the fans' money along with their own. It shows that it's bigger than sports and shows their passion towards the Black Lives Matter movement, and showed how much they really cared about what was going on at the time and what continues to be going on still to this day. And personally, in my opinion, it's good that it blew up the way it did, because this is something that's been going on for entirely too long, and it definitely needs to be stopped.
Yeah, and another issue that was pretty interesting to me was how the Black Lives Matter movement, it was only an issue when a cop or somebody of white color killed a black life. They never spoke about black-on-black killings, which I think is a great point personally, because it's easy to point the finger at whoever's in the spotlight at the moment, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that nobody really knows about.
You know, Trevor, and I think that's a great point, a very great perspective. Looking from the outside in, it's easy to point the finger at who's in the spotlight, but the things that go on behind the scenes, they never really get talked about. And this whole thing is it's a part of the bigger issue. It's not just the Black Lives Matter in general. It's bigger than that, and it's an ongoing issue that needs to be fixed. This results in a lot of innocent lives being taken, and I'm just happy that there's a movement that went around and is still going around that puts stuff like this in the spotlight so that we can get past it as a country in America.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is a great movement, and the movement was created for all the right reasons. And I'm really just glad that there's a movement out there trying to resolve the issue now.
And you know, Trevor, the Black Lives Matter movement, it became so big at one point that it created something called the cancel culture, which was basically if you spoke on a different race, basically everybody would hate you and have an opinion on you, even if you didn't mean any harm towards it. And a lot of people would get bashed on social media and in person and would just get basically deleted.
Yeah, the cancel culture was actually a big thing, and in my opinion, it happened for all the right reasons, and to this day it's still being used, and people all have a certain respect on mutual races, in my opinion, now, whereas before it wasn't that respect.
And Trevor, I thank you for that. Basically, today we talked about the Black Lives Matter movement, and it sums up basically how big this situation was and how much of an impact it had and still has on the lives of everyone across America.